Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about value-based decision making. And I feel that is a way to say no and yes to you. I want to talk through first what that means to make value-based decisions and then go through some steps and how you might come up with your values and put those into action. So during one of my therapy sessions, after being very frustrated, my therapist said, I don't think you're making decisions based off of your core values. And she asked me the question, what are your core values? And I was a little taken back by that question, because you think that you're making decisions based off of things that you think are important to you, but have you ever really sat down and thought about what those values might be? And of course, we've got some things, at a very general level, like, loyalty, friendship, having a companion, loyalty in a marriage, having a boss that's amazing, and being loyal to your boss and maybe not to a company. And when I sat down and kind of dug deep into what my values were, what I found very often was that I was making decisions based out of obligation, not based on my value system. So because I felt obligated to, not necessarily thinking through why I was just making the decision, and really trying to identify, does this, really align with what I feel is good for me? And it would cause me grief and regret, and made me very angry after I would follow through on some of these commitments out of obligation that was not in alignment with my core values. So I really do want to share some of those things so that you can avoid things like anger, anxiety, and regret, and remorse for maybe some of the actions or decisions that you make. So the first thing I would recommend that you do is that you really sit down and you think about identifying your core values. So at the end of this video, I will put down my 5 core values, and that's the list that I came up with. Mine was first, faith is a big thing for me. So faith in service, specifically service to others. And that could be a friend, a family member, a stranger, was very important to me. So I tend to be the one that hops around and will help somebody that people probably wouldn't normally help. Like, I'm that person. I will go out of my way to try to help somebody that others won't. That is important to me. Or I'll do something for somebody that might be struggling, that might be easy for me, and that's important to me. My marriage and children or immediate family is very important to me. So that was a core value. So anything that would go against them, obviously wouldn't fly. And that includes time with my family. And I would find that my job, because I felt obligated to work overtime or do the things that my boss would ask me to do, would take away from time from my family. And because I felt obligated to my boss, that made me angry, because it took away from my family, who, obviously was part of my value system. So those are just some examples of identifying what your core values are. It's not as simple as just labeling a word. Like, really dig deep. And then prioritize your values. So if you have 5, kind of put them in order, because you may have to really choose between, whether or not you have a creative aspiration, which is one of my values, in your family. Obviously, I'm going to pick family over a creative aspiration, or at least have a conversation with my family before I run off and do something creative that might conflict with, time with them. And then you want to consider the potential outcomes of your decisions. So in the example I gave, where the boss is asking me for overtime, and it conflicts with my time with my family, if I tell my boss no, do I understand the consequences of saying no to my boss and yes to me and my values? So you need to work through that part of it too, is understanding the consequences of your decision-making process. And maybe even have to reassess, or do you find a balance between those two choices? And often we tend to tip the scale to one side or the other, and we don't find balance. But I think by finding what your core values are and basing your decisions off of that will help you find balance. The other thing is, like, do a gut check. Listen to your intuition. Like, if it doesn't feel right, obviously that would go against some of your values. In my case, like, that obligation, man, I would step into those situations where just because I felt obligated, I would do it. And my gut would tell me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Don't sign up for that, don't sign up for that. And I would still do it. And then being so angry with myself afterwards. And then I would also say, like, if you have a higher power, or, I like to pray. If you meditate or put it out into the universe, like, put those things out there so that you can, really hone in on what it is that you want to focus in on as far as those values. And then putting those into action, can be difficult. Like I said, telling someone no because it goes against whatever list you've come up with is gonna be challenging. I always say that when you make a change, people think there's something wrong with you. And that's because you're doing something different and out of your normal kind of like pattern character. So they think there's something wrong, even though you're actually doing something that's there to help improve and make yourself feel better. It throws them off, makes them feel uncomfortable, so they think there's a problem with you. So just kind of remember that when you make these changes, like, you're gonna throw people off, and there's gonna be a little bit of, I'll say, roughness, until you kind of get people on the same page as to where you're going with your decisions. And that can be really tough. And when it gets too tough, find advocates for you to get on your side. And if you don't have an advocate, you need to find them. Always have someone in your corner, whether it's a family, a friend, or a therapist, or some sort of professional that can kind of advocate or cheer you on and be your cheerleader. I think that's important too. And then after you've made your list and try to implement in these things, always reflect back, because your values can change over time. The example I will use is, I'm an empty nester now. So maybe not being home at 5 o'clock, or when the kids are home from school, doesn't make sense anymore. So that family value of time may have shifted. So I need to reassess, okay, is that family time really as important as it used to be? And maybe I need to apply that to different decision. Like, maybe I can do other things. Maybe I can work the overtime. Maybe I can do something different with a hobby. Maybe I can spend more time in that creative space versus that family time. So reassess, quite frequently, because life changes quickly. And then put those steps back into play where you identify, you maybe pray or meditate over that, understand the consequences of your values, and then implement, and then reassess again. It's like this big circle. So always remember that when you're saying no to someone else, you're saying yes to you. And I think by making these value-based decisions, that you're being really true to yourself, and you're not just in a tidal wave of life and making decisions based off of everybody else's, play. Someone might be pushing you one direction, and that's not really the direction you should be going in. So what I would like to say to you is, be strong and stick to those values. And it may be difficult, but you can do it. So that's what I have to say today. And I always tell you guys, try to find something that's going to help you or make your life better, and try something every day. So with that, take care, and I'll talk to you next time.